Imagine this. You're hanging off an icy cliff, nearly 3,000 meters above the ground. Your partners are dead. One froze higher up, two more dangle lifelessly below you. Then, in the middle of the night, an avalanche hits. Somehow, you survive. But now you're suspended in midair, held by a single rope. Just a meter below, rescuers are reaching out, shouting your name. But they can't touch you. This isn't a nightmare. It's the true story of Tony Kurtz, one of four climbers who tried to conquer the most terrifying wall in the Alps, the one they called the Mordwand, the Wall of Death. Today we're going to uncover what really happened on the north face of the Eiger in August of 1936, the Swiss Alps, 1930s. The golden age of mountaineering is already over. The Matterhorn has been climbed, Mont Blanc has been crossed by dozens of routes. Even the mighty Grandes Jorasses no longer seems impossible. Most great peaks already have their heroes. Most routes are marked on maps. Climbers start looking for new challenges, harder lines, riskier faces. But there's one place even the legends avoid, a place whispered about in mountain huts, the Eiger. Standing just under 4,000 meters, the Eiger isn't the tallest peak in the Alps, not even close. But that doesn't matter, because the Eiger has a north face. 1,800 meters of pure, unfiltered nightmare. The kind of wall you look up at and think, no human could ever climb that. Picture it, a face that curves inward like a giant funnel, not just vertical, overhanging. The lower sections are littered with loose rock that can fall without warning. You cling to fragile holds, inching upward, and above you there's that constant sound, tapping, whistling, crashing, rock fall. Sometimes it misses, sometimes it doesn't. Higher up, the rock turns smooth and polished, impossible to grip. You search for cracks, pockets, anything solid enough to hammer in a peat on. But the wall seems to toy with you. It gives hope, then snatches it away. And above that, the overhangs begin. You're hanging almost upside down, desperately clawing for something, anything to hold on to. Your muscles burn, your fingers go numb, and the summit is still hundreds of meters away. Rock falls happen here every single day. In the morning, when the sun warms the cliff, in the afternoon, when the ice melts, in the evening when the cold returns and the stone begins to crack. Avalanches strike without warning. You can be standing on what feels like a safe ledge, and suddenly a ton of snow and ice comes roaring down from above. Storms roll in out of nowhere. One moment, the sky is clear. You see green meadows below, tourists watching through their telescopes, and you think, it's fine, the weather's holding. 20 minutes later, the mountain is engulfed in freezing rain. Lightning hits the rock around you. Wind tries to tear you from the face. No one who tried to climb this wall ever came back. Not one. Their bodies were rarely found. Some vanished into crevasses. Others were swept away by avalanches. Some froze where they stood, eternal monuments to their own courage, or maybe their overconfidence. That's why it was called the Mordwand, the Wall of Death. A dark play on words that only makes sense in German. Nordwand means north wall. Change one letter and you get Mordwand, murder wall. One letter, one fatal difference. It's not just a name anymore, it's a warning. By the mid-1930s, the north face of the Eiger had become a symbol, the last great challenge of the Alps, the final unconquered wall. Newspapers wrote about it. People talked about it in bars. Tourists traveled to the nearby village of Grindelwald just to look at it through binoculars. And, of course, there were those who believed they could do what no one else had, those willing to risk everything. The first to try were two young friends from Munich, ambitious, determined, fearless. They spent months studying the wall through telescopes, mapping every possible line. They had no idea their attempt would end in tragedy, a story retold for generations as a warning to every climber who followed. A reminder that in these mountains, even the smallest mistake can cost you everything, and that on the Eiger, death doesn't come quickly. It takes its time. 1935. Max Siedelmayer and Karl Meringer stand in the village of Grindelwald, peering through a telescope at the Eiger's north face. They're both in their early 20s, both from Munich, both consumed by the same obsession, to be the first to climb the Mordwand. But they're not dreamers, they're professionals. Zettelmeyer works in a mountaineering gear shop. He knows every pedon, every rope, every carabiner like the back of his hand. Meringer is an experienced climber with dozens of serious routes behind him, and they prepare like no one before them. For months they study the wall through their telescope, sketching every section by hand. Here, a rocky bastion. They'll need to go around it from the left. There, an ice field. Better bring more ice screws. That overhang, they'll have to traverse. On paper, they map out the route like architects designing a building. They even stash supplies and gear higher up, hiding them in cracks and crevices for later. The preparation is perfect, flawless. On August 21st, they step onto the wall. The plan is simple. 3 days to the top. Day 1, climb through the lower section and reach the first ice field. Day 2, tackle the hardest part. Day 3, push for the summit. Everything is calculated, everything under control. At first, it all goes according to plan. The first rocky bastion, which had looked so intimidating from below, falls in just a few hours. Their technique is sharp, their movements confident. Next comes the first ice field, 55 degrees of frozen slope, as steep as the roof of a house. Swing by swing, they cut steps into the ice, climbing higher with each strike of their axes. Their gear is state-of-the-art for 1935. Lightweight rubberized tents, experimental bivouac poles, reinforced ropes. For the time, it's almost space age, but the essence of climbing remains the same. Old school, 2 men tied to one rope. One leads, setting anchors and climbing higher. The other follows, removing the gear and belaying. Teamwork, trust, iron will. No backup plan, no retreat, only up. Down below, a crowd gathers. Tourists pull out binoculars and telescopes. Journalists take notes, scribbling updates for tomorrow's papers. 2 tiny figures on a massive wall. It's a spectacle. People start placing bets. Some believe they'll make it. Others shake their heads. Just another pair of daredevils who won't come back. On the second day, something shifts. The pace slows. The second ice field is longer and steeper than it looked from the valley. The ice is harder. The screws barely bite. Each step takes dozens of hammer blows. Their arms ache. Rockfall grows more frequent. Stones whistling past, forcing them to flatten against the wall, covering their heads with their packs. Then the sky changes. Fast. As if someone pulled a curtain across the mountains. Clouds roll in from below, wrapping the face in a dense fog. The temperature drops, the wind picks up, and then the storm hits. A full alpine thunderstorm. Lightning strikes the rock. Thunder bounces between the cliffs, echoing like a drum. Rain turns to hail. The 2 climbers vanish into the storm. Through the telescopes below, there's nothing to see anymore, just a gray veil of cloud, split now and then by flashes of white light somewhere up high. For 4 days, the wall stays hidden behind clouds. 4 days of rain, wind, and lightning. Down in Grindelwald, life seems to stop. Tourists don't leave their hotels. They sit by the windows with binoculars and telescopes, staring into the gray haze. Journalists wait in bars, writing updates, arguing about chances. The local guides just shake their heads. Weather like this on the Eiger means only one thing. The hotel owner tells a reporter, "I've seen many attempts. No one survives weather like that on the wall. No one." But still, people wait. Because they want to believe. Because mountaineering in those years isn't just a sport. It's heroism. It's pride. Germany is going through hard times, and every climb, every triumph over nature, feels like a symbol of hope. August 25th, morning, the clouds finally lift, sunlight breaks through the fog, and the wall comes into view again. Someone grabs a telescope, aims it at Sedlmayr and Meringer's route, and sees them. 2 black dots between the second and third ice fields. One is moving, fast, erratic, like someone stumbling or searching. The other barely stirs, shifting only slightly, slowly, as if every movement costs everything. The watchers freeze. Maybe they're descending, maybe looking for shelter. An hour passes. The dots stop. Completely. No more movement. People keep watching for another 2 hours, hoping for the smallest sign of life. But the wall stays silent. Ernst Udet, the famous German pilot and World War I ace, takes off in his plane and heads for the Eiger. He's known for his daredevil flying. The man once flew under bridges just to entertain a crowd. Now, he pushes his aircraft dangerously close to the north face, into air currents that could flip the plane straight into the cliffs. And he sees one of them. A climber sitting on a narrow ledge, leaning back against the rock. Frozen solid, still upright. As if he'd just stopped to rest and fallen asleep. But it's not sleep. Udet circles a few times, trying to spot the second man, but he's somewhere below, hidden by the folds of the mountain. The place where Maringer froze is now called the Bivouac of Death. In mountaineering, a bivouac means a night spent on the wall. But this one was the last. Max Sedlmeyer's brother, Heinrich, can't accept it. He's a skilled climber himself, and a few weeks later, he sets out to find Max's body. He climbs through the Eigerwan Tunnel, a tourist railway passage cut through the mountain. From its observation windows, you can actually step out onto the face, bypassing the lower sections. Heinrich climbs up and finds Max not far from one of those windows, so close to safety. Just a few dozen meters more, and he would have made it. The tragedy shakes the climbing world, but does it make the wall less alluring? Not at all. If anything, it does the opposite. Now, the north face of the Eiger has a reputation. It's no longer just a route, it's a legend. And legends always attract those who want to become heroes. Summer of 1936. Less than a year after the tragedy, a new tent appears beneath the north face. Willi Angerer and Edi Rainer, both Austrians, set up their base camp on the grassy meadows above Grindelwald. They study every report from the previous attempt, talk to witnesses, trying to figure out exactly where Sedlmeyer and Maringer made their fatal mistake. Their conclusion is simple. They can't follow the same route. They need a new line, and they find one. Slightly to the left of the original path, they spot a broken bastion, a section of rock that's cracked open, forming a series of fissures. Harder to climb, yes, but maybe safer from falling rocks. Angerer goes first, testing holds, hammering in pitons. Rainer belays from below. They move like clockwork. But after a few days, they hit a wall, literally. The rust-colored wall, a sheer face of reddish rock, smooth and solid as iron. No cracks, no ledges, no way through. Angerer tries 3 times, each time turning back. The rock is too hard for pitons. They simply won't bite. There's no way around. A drop to the left, an overhang to the right. Time drags on. The weather shifts by the hour. Sunshine one moment, clouds and wind the next. They wait in camp for a break in the storms, but they can feel their window closing. Supplies are running low, so is their resolve. Then another pair arrives. Andreas Hinterstoisser and Toni Kurz, Germans, both young, both strong climbers. Hinterstoisser is famous for tackling routes others call impossible. Kurz, his partner, is quieter but just as skilled. They are planning to follow the classic route, the same line taken by Sedlmeyer and Maringer. The newspapers seize the story instantly. Germans versus Austrians, the race on the Eiger. The headlines explode. Journalists love it. Rivalry, danger, national pride. Photographers rush between the two camps, hoping to spark a bit of drama. Who will reach the top first? Who will win the mountain? But the climbers don't care about that. This isn't a race, it's survival. Angerer and Rainer meet the Germans on the approach. They talk, share notes, compare routes. Hinterstoisser explains his plan for the traverse. Angerer points out where they got stuck on the rust wall, and right there, an idea forms. Why not team up? 4 men instead of 2. More gear, more experience, more hands for the ropes. If one weakens, the others can take over. If someone gets hurt, they can help him down. It makes perfect sense. They shake hands. It's decided. They'll climb together. August 18th. The weather finally breaks. The wind dies. The clouds clear. The air warms. A perfect window. The 4 of them pack their gear, check their ropes, pitons, carabiners. Below, a crowd gathers, a sight never seen before. 4 climbers on the north face at once. Telescopes ready, notebooks open. The team begins their ascent, confident, focused, hopeful. They don't know that this will be their last climb, that in just 3 days, 3 of them will be dead, and the 4th will hang from a rope, only a meter away from salvation. The start is perfect. The sun hangs above the Alps, the sky clear as glass. The 4 of them move with quiet confidence, almost effortlessly. Hinterstoisser leads the way. He's the most skilled climber in the team. And now he's about to face the section that will become legend, the traverse, a sideways move across the face instead of climbing up. Imagine this. You're hanging 2,500 meters above the ground with nothing but air beneath you, and you need to move 30 meters to the right across a smooth wall of rock. No steps, no holds. Just a thin crack, barely wide enough for a finger. Hinterstoisser drives in tiny pitons, stretches a rope, and swings from one anchor to the next like a pendulum. Far below, people watch through telescopes, holding their breath. One journalist later writes, "It looked like a circus act without a safety net." Hinterstoicer finishes the traverse in 2 hours. Pure mastery. That stretch will forever bear his name, the Hinterstoicer Traverse. But something goes wrong. He catches his hand on a sharp edge. The rock slices deep into his palm. The pain is sharp. The hand swells almost instantly. He wraps it with a handkerchief, grits his teeth. His teammates ask, "Should we turn back?" He shakes his head. "We keep going. It's nothing." And it makes sense. They've only just begun. The weather's perfect. Turning back would feel absurd. So, they press on. The traverse is behind them now. All four reach the first ice field. Their pace is steady, their spirits high. Kurtz jokes that they'll reach the summit ahead of schedule. Raynor says he can already see his face in the papers. They cut steps, drive in ice screws, belay one another, a team moving as one, like they've trained together for years. Then, on the second ice field, everything changes. Angerer is climbing a steep section when a rock breaks loose above him, small, the size of a fist. But up here, even that falls like a bullet. It hits his head, hard. Angerer swings on the rope, loses consciousness for a few seconds. The others freeze. Kurtz shouts from below, "Willie, can you hear me?" Hinterstoicer climbs up to help. Angerer stirs, grabs the rope, blinks. Something dark seeps from beneath his cap, a head wound. Through the telescopes below, they can see the team has stopped. The reporters exchange glances. One says, "They'll go down now. They'd be crazy not to." But half an hour passes, then an hour, and the climbers keep moving upward. His friends insist, "Willie, we need to go back. A head injury is serious." But Angerer refuses. "I'm fine, just a scratch. Let's keep going." His voice is firm, his resolve unshakable. He doesn't want to be the one who ends the climb. That night, they make camp right there on the ice field. No tent, no shelter, just sleeping bags tied to their anchors under an open sky. The temperature drops below freezing, but they're used to it. These are mountaineers of the 1930s. No warm tents, no modern gear, only grit and endurance. By morning, they continue upward. Angerer says he feels better, but it isn't true. The headache, the dizziness, the nausea, they're getting worse, and that will decide the fate of all four. Morning of August 19th, their second day on the wall. The team climbs higher, moving left across the face toward the third ice field. The plan is working. They tackle each hard section with method and calm precision. Hinterstoicer drives the pitons, fixes the rope, crosses first. The others follow in sequence, standard climbing routine, and they do what every climber does on the way up. They pull the ropes behind them. Why leave expensive gear on the wall? They're going higher, and they need every rope, every piton. The descent, no one's thinking about that. When you're climbing, there's no way back. Only the summit, only the goal. Down below, people watch their progress. One tourist says to another, "Look, they're already a third of the way up. Maybe they'll actually make it." Reporters send out cheerful updates. The team is climbing steadily. The weather remains favorable. By midday, they reach the spot, the Death Bivouac, a narrow ledge where Karl Maringer froze to death a year earlier. His body is gone now, but everyone knows the place. Everyone remembers. The mood turns heavy in an instant. The silence feels like lead. Angerer stops, leaning on his ice axe. His face is gray, his eyes clouded. He's barely holding on. The pain in his head is splitting, blinding. He can't focus his vision. His coordination is off. Twice he misses a handhold. Hinterstoicer looks at him and knows they can't go on. This isn't stubbornness anymore. It's reality. The head injury is getting worse. Maybe internal bleeding, maybe swelling. At 3,000 meters, nothing can be done. Kurtz moves closer, speaks quietly. "We have to go down, now." Raynor hears and nods. The decision comes fast, without debate. Descent. Immediately. But on the Eiger, weather turns in an instant. The sky that was clear half an hour ago fills with gray clouds. They roll in from below, wrapping the face like a shroud. Rain begins, light at first, then harder. The temperature drops. The rain turns to ice. Angerer is fading. He can barely stand, and they have to hold him on the rope. The descent becomes a race for survival. They have to get down before nightfall, reach the Hinterstoicer Traverse, cross it, and escape to safer ground. Time is short, very short. They start down, slowly, cautiously. Every meter is a fight. The rock is slick and wet. The ropes are freezing, stiffening like wire. The pitons barely hold in the soaked stone. Angerer loses his footing twice. They catch him just in time. By evening, they reach the Hinterstoiser Traverse, the same section they'd crossed the day before, so smoothly, so effortlessly. And now they see the terrible truth. It's frozen solid, the entire wall coated in a thin, glassy sheet of ice. The rain has turned to freezing rain, the temperature has dropped below zero, and every surface is slick and deadly. The pitons Hinterstoiser had driven yesterday, they pulled them out. The rope they had used for safety, they took it with them. All the gear went upward, and now, to get home, they have to cross 30 meters of sheer icy rock with no protection. Hinterstoiser tries, one step, another. His foot slips. He grabs for the crack, but his fingers slide. Everything is coated in ice. He tries to drive in a piton, but the metal skates off the rock, finding no purchase. He moves left, no luck. Right, the same. The traverse is impossible. The way back is gone. They all realize it at once. For a few seconds, no one speaks. They just stand there, staring at the frozen wall. The trap has closed. They're locked in, 3,000 meters up, with a wounded man and the darkness closing in. They're trapped on the traverse. 4 climbers pressed against the wall, staring at 30 meters of frozen rock. And they know. This is the end of the route. The rain turns into a freezing downpour, the kind mountaineers call black ice. The wall is sheathed in a clear, glassy shell, a finger's width thick. Pitons won't hold. The metal just slides, unable to bite into the ice-coated stone. The ropes are frozen stiff, hard as wire. Working with them is almost impossible. They don't bend, and they cut through gloves into raw skin. Hinterstoiser makes one last attempt. He's the man who first conquered this traverse. He knows every crack, every ledge by heart. He hooks onto an edge, shifts his weight, tries to step across. His foot slips. He drops, swings out into space, hanging over the void. The others haul him back. His face is pale. "It's no use," he says quietly. "We need another way." They huddle together under a narrow overhang, the wind tearing at their voices. Kurtz shouts over the storm, "The tunnel! The railway windows!" Everyone understands. The Eiger Tunnel. The train passage cut through the mountain for tourists. There are viewing windows that open straight onto the north face. If they can descend about 200 meters straight down, they might reach a slanting ledge near one of those openings. From there, they could escape. It's their only chance. They begin the descent, slow, torturous, rope length by rope length. Angerer is barely conscious. They have to belay him with extra lines, practically carrying him down the wall. Rockfall never stops. Ice is melting on the upper ledges, sending stones whistling down. One hits Rayner's pack, tearing through the fabric and destroying part of their supplies. Then come the avalanches. Small ones, thin sheets of snow, but there are many. They pour from the ledges above, blanketing the climbers in white, blinding them for seconds at a time. The temperature drops below freezing. Fingers go numb, even through gloves. Every breath turns to steam. August 20th, around noon. They've descended lower now. The ledge near the tunnel windows is in sight. Close, so close. Just a few dozen more meters. Down below, a man appears in one of the windows. Albert von Allmen, a railway worker making his inspection rounds. He steps to the opening, looks out, and hears shouting. He scans upward and sees them. 4 tiny figures clinging to the wall, only a short distance above. They're waving, calling out. He can't make out the words. The wind rips them away, but the message is clear. "Help us." Von Allmen shouts back, "Hold on, I'm going for help." The climbers hear him. They answer. Relief floods through them. Rescue is right there, within reach. Just a few more meters, and they'll be safe. And then they hear it. A low, rising roar from above. All 4 look up. A white wall is coming down. A real avalanche this time, massive and unstoppable, sweeping everything in its path. The avalanche hits like a tsunami. Tons of snow and ice crashing down, sweeping everything from the face of the mountain. Hinterstoiser is in front, leading the descent, testing the route. He isn't clipped into the safety rope, standard practice for the lead climber, so he doesn't drag the others if he slips. The avalanche takes him instantly, No time to grab hold, no chance to react. He's just gone. A flash of movement, a cry that echoes off the walls, and then silence. From the tunnel window, Albert von Allmen sees it all. Sees the body fall past, swallowed by a cloud of white powder. He freezes, unable to believe what he's just witnessed. One of them is gone. The other three are roped together, their lifeline and their curse. Kurtz leads, Angerer is in the middle, Raynor last. The avalanche sweeps them all off their anchors, ripping the pitons from the ice. They fall. Kurtz plunges into the void, nothing but white and the deafening roar of snow. 3 seconds of free fall, an eternity. Then the rope catches. The jolt is brutal, enough to tear him in half. The fall stops. Kurtz dangles beneath an icy ledge, his elbow somehow hooked on a rock edge. The rope bites into his waist, crushing the breath out of him. He hangs there, swinging, dazed, trying to understand what just happened. Below him, Angerer, and below Angerer, Raynor, 3 bodies hanging in space like puppets on a single thread. Kurtz yells, "Willie! Eddie! Can you hear me?" No answer, only the wind and the faint groan of the rope under strain. He pulls himself up a little, straining to see. Angerer hangs motionless, head bent at an impossible angle. He must have hit the rock during the fall. Death was instant. Kurtz knows it the moment he sees the way the body hangs. Limp, weightless. Raynor is lower, alive, barely. Kurtz can hear him gasping, a wet, rattling breath. His chest crushed by the impact against a ledge. His jaw shattered. A piton from his harness must have slammed into his face. He's unconscious, choking on his own blood, which freezes in dark streaks across his collar. Kurtz is the only one still fighting. One hand clings to the rope, the other is useless, shoulder dislocated, fingers stiff and numb. Above him, the ledge is a sheet of glassy ice. Below, the abyss. And hanging beneath him, 2 bodies, one dead, one dying. He hangs there for minutes that feel endless, trying to think, to breathe, to stay awake. The cold seeps through everything. The wind swings the rope back and forth, the sound of metal scraping rock. Then, a voice, a human voice, cutting through the storm. "Hold on, we're getting help." Kurtz looks down. In the window of the tunnel, he sees a tiny figure, von Allmen, waving, shouting something else he can't make out. The distance between them is small, maybe 50 meters, but those 50 meters are everything, the space between life and death. Kurtz shouts back, his voice cracking raw. "Hurry, please!" Von Allmen disappears into the tunnel, and Kurtz is left alone, hanging from the frozen wall of the Eiger, 3,000 meters up, with 2 bodies below him and the storm closing in. Rescue is close, but is close enough? Von Allmen runs through the tunnel like a man possessed. He bursts into the station, grabs the phone, and calls for help. Within half an hour, the best mountain guides in the region arrive, Hans Schlunegger and the brothers Christian and Adolf Ruby. These men know the Eiger like their own skin. Dozens of rescues, hundreds of climbs. If anyone can reach him, it's them. They step out through the tunnel window, straight onto the face, climbing into the frozen chaos. They move fast but carefully. One slip, and the rescuers will need rescuing themselves. The rock is glazed with ice, every hold brittle, every move a risk. After an hour of climbing, they spot him. Kurtz is still there, hanging in midair, pressed to the wall, frostbitten, but alive. Schlunegger shouts up, "Tony, can you hear us?" Kurtz lifts his head, answers with a rasping voice, "I hear you. Help me." The rescuers climb higher, but hit a massive overhang. The section above is too steep, too dangerous. They can't go any further, so they try something else. They shout for him to catch a rope, to grab gear, food, anything. "Tony, catch this." They throw a coil of rope upward. It falls short, drops back down. They try again, and again. The rope swings past him each time. Kurtz can't reach. His hands are frozen to his own line, the skin fused to the icy fibers. He tries to move his fingers, but they won't respond. Frostbite. He's hanging just 10 meters above them, close enough to see their faces. Yet those 10 meters are an impossible gulf. Below, in the shadows, the bodies of Angerer and Raynor still hang from the rope. Kurtz can't see them, but he feels their weight. He knows they're there. One already gone, the other likely too. The ragged breathing stopped long ago. The weather turns again. The sky darkens, thunder rolls. Lightning flashes against the face, striking the rock with blinding light. Wind howls through the wall, tossing Kurtz back and forth like a pendulum. The temperature drops even lower. The rescuers shout to each other over the storm, their voices barely carrying. Schlunegger makes the call. "We have to pull back. In this weather we can't do anything. We'll return at dawn." It's the right decision. The only one, but for Kurtz, it sounds like a death sentence. They shout up to him, "Tony, hold on until morning. We'll be back at first light. You hear us?" Kurtz nods, though they can't see it in the darkness. His voice drifts down, faint and tired. "I'll wait." The rescuers retreat into the tunnel, and Kurtz is alone again, hanging on the rope through the night, in the cold that drops below 10 degrees below freezing, in the wind that threatens to tear him off the wall. 3,000 meters up, the air thin, every breath a struggle. He presses himself against the rock, trying to hold on to any trace of warmth. The night stretches on forever. Every minute feels like an hour. Kurtz fights sleep. He knows if he closes his eyes, he'll never wake again. He talks to himself, wiggles his toes, forces his body to move, to remember it's still alive. He thinks of home, of his family, of making it through till morning. Dawn comes slowly. The first light touches the summit of the Eiger, pale gold against the ice. The rescuers return to the tunnel window and look up, and they can't believe what they see. Kurtz is still there, still alive. After an entire night in the cold, he's still holding on. August 21st, dawn, the rescue team returns, and this time, they're not alone. With them is Arnold Glathard, one of Switzerland's most skilled climbers, a man who's tackled routes others wouldn't dare to dream of. If there's even the slightest chance to save Kurtz, he'll find it. They step out from the tunnel, look up. Kurtz is still there, hanging from the same rope, in the same position, but alive. After a night in the freezing dark, after everything that's happened, he's still alive. Schlunegger calls out, "Tony, can you hear us?" Kurtz lifts his head. The movement is slow, mechanical, like every muscle is rebelling. His voice is raw, nearly lost to the wind. "I hear you." A pause. "I'm still here." Glathard studies the wall. He scans the overhang, the ice-glazed rock, the distance between them. Tries one possible route, too smooth. Another, overhung with ice. Another, crumbling under his hands. There's no way. The face is too steep, too dangerous. Even with modern gear, it would push the limits of what's humanly possible. But this is 1936. They have only pitons, ropes, and courage. They shout back and forth, voices swallowed by the wind. Schlunegger says, "We can't climb up. It's suicide. We'd die up there." Glathard nods. He knows it's true, but then, what else can they do? And then Kurtz himself calls down, weak but clear, "I'll cut the rope, free my partners, tie the ropes together, and lower myself to you." The rescuers glance at one another. It's madness. To work one-handed, half-frozen, hanging on a wall like that. But there's no alternative. They gather everything they can send up. A knife, a hammer, a piton, 30 meters of spare rope. They tie the bundle to a line, unwind it, and throw. The first toss falls short, the second too. On the third, Kurtz catches it, pulls it in. Begins to work, with one hand. Only one, the other is frozen stiff, the fingers locked and useless. He grips the knife in his teeth, starts sawing at the rope above him. It's thick, crusted with ice. The dull blade slips again and again. He saws for a minute, 2, 5. Finally, the fibers begin to snap. The rope gives way. Angerer's body falls, whipping past the rescuers, vanishing into the void below. They turn away, unable to watch. Now, Rayner. Kurtz lowers himself a little, reaches him. Rayner's gone, it's obvious. His face gray, eyes open, but empty. The rope is tangled around him, twisted through carabiners and pitons. Kurtz starts to untie it. Every motion is torture, every knot a battle. An hour passes, then another. The sun climbs, but the cold doesn't ease. The rescuers stand silently, watching, helpless. All they can do is wait. At last, Kurtz frees the final section of rope. Rayner's body falls, vanishing below. Now, Kurtz has several lengths of rope, uneven, frayed, but usable. He begins knotting them together, piece by piece. 5 ropes, 5 knots, one hand, in sub-zero wind, 3,000 meters above the ground. The rope is ready. rough, improvised, fragile, but it's his only chance. Kurd secures the makeshift rope to a piton above him. He checks each knot, pulls a few times. It holds. He looks down. The rescuers are tiny figures far below, distant and close all at once. He shouts, "I'm coming down!" He begins his descent, slow, careful, centimeter by centimeter, one hand gripping the rope, the other trying to steady his weight. But that hand is almost gone, frozen stiff up to the elbow. Everything depends on one arm. He lowers himself along the rope he tied together from the lines he cut off his dead friends. Each knot slides through the carabiner with a dull, heavy thud. Below, the rescuers hold their breath. No one speaks. Glathard climbs onto Schlunegger's shoulders, reaching up as far as he can. His arms stretch toward the climber above. Just a little more. "Come on, Tony, you're almost home." Kurtz descends, 5 meters away. 4, 3. They can see his face now, gray as ash, lips blue, frost clinging to his cheeks. His eyes half open, still alive, still fighting. Just a few more moments and Glathard will reach him. 2 meters. 1. Glathard can almost feel it, the frozen boots, the nearness of another human life. He stretches higher, fingers trembling, just inches away. Another pull, 1 more meter, and then the rope stops. It won't move. Kurtz tugs, but it's jammed. He looks up, trying to see what's wrong, and then he finds it. One of the knots, one of the 5 knots he tied with his single working hand. It's wedged in the carabiner, the knot too thick, the metal too narrow. The rope won't pass through. Kurtz tries to force it. He jerks the line, once, twice, again. The rope cuts into his palm, blood mixing with ice. Nothing. He twists, changes his angle, pulls harder, still nothing. The knot is stuck fast, and then his strength just drains away, completely as if someone pulled the plug. 3 days without sleep, 2 without food or water. A night in the cold, frostbite, shock, exhaustion. His body simply stops. He hangs there, arms falling limp by his sides. Below, Glathard rises on his toes atop his partner's shoulders, stretching so far it looks like he'll tear free from the mountain itself. 1/2 meter. Just 1/2 meter between them and life. He can see Kurtz's face clearly now. The closed eyes, the faint, shallow rise of his chest. They shout up, desperate. "Tony, hold on, just a little more. We're right here." Glathard yells, "Tony, look at me. I'm here. Reach out your hand." Kurtz opens his eyes, looks down, sees Glathard, the outstretched hands, salvation less than an arm's length away. His lips move. The words are barely a whisper, but the rescuers will remember them for the rest of their lives. "I can't anymore." His head sinks to his chest. His arms hang loose. Kurtz goes still, suspended there, 1 meter from safety, 1 meter from life. The wind sways his body gently, but he feels nothing now. Tony Kurtz hangs on the rope for hours. The rescuers don't leave. They stand below, staring upward, hoping for a miracle. Maybe he'll wake up. Maybe he'll find the strength to reach out. Just 1/2 meter between him and life. But the miracle never comes. Frostbite has reached his shoulders. 3 days without a single sip of water. His body has burned through every reserve, every ounce of energy. 3 days without sleep, without food, in the cold, in the wind. High above the ground, where every breath takes effort, his system begins to shut down, one function after another. First the limbs, then the organs, then his heart starts to skip beats. Below, Glathard still stands on Schlunegger's shoulders, arms outstretched. He can't look away. He sees Kurtz's head slowly drop to his chest, sees the body go limp, hanging heavy on the rope. Hears the last sound, a faint rasp, almost lost in the wind. Not a cry, not a groan, just a breath that never comes back. "I can't go on." Those words will stay with Glathard forever. He'll repeat them in interviews, write them in reports, remember them at night before sleep. 4 words that draw the final line under the tragedy. Tony Kurtz dies just 1 meter from salvation. Literally 1 meter. Glathard could have touched his boots if he'd been just a little higher. Could have grabbed his leg, pulled him in, saved him. But no. 1 meter is an impossible distance. His body remains hanging on the rope, swaying in the wind. The rescuers stay there for another hour, unable to leave. Then Schlunegger quietly says, "Let's go. There's nothing we can do." They descend back into the tunnel. silent. No one says a word. Days later, when the weather clears, the team returns. They climb up to Kurtz's body, cut the rope with a long knife fixed to a pole. The body falls. They retrieve it and carry it down into the valley. He's buried beside his teammates, Hinterstoicer, Angerer, and Rayner. The four of them had set out on August 18th, 1936. None came back. Newspapers will write about their courage, about the tragedy, about the north face of the Eiger that claimed 4 more lives. Journalists will accuse the climbers of recklessness. Others will defend them as pioneers chasing a dream. But for those who stood below and watched Tony Kurtz's final moments, it was simpler and far more terrifying. Sometimes 1 meter is all it takes to separate life from death. And there's nothing you can do. Nothing. 1938. 2 years later, 4 climbers stand at the foot of the Eiger's north face. Heinrich Harrer, Fritz Kasparek, Anderl Heckmeyer, and Ludwig Verg. They know the stories. They know about Siedelmeier and Mehringer. They know about the 4 men of 1936. They know about Tony Kurtz, who died just 1 meter from rescue. And still, they go. This time, things are different. New gear, stronger pedons, tougher ropes, lighter ice axes. A new strategy. They leave fixed lines behind for retreat, learning from the mistakes of those before them. They cross the Hinterstoiser Traverse, that deadly section that once became a trap. They pass the Death Bivouac, where Mehringer froze to death. They climb higher, to places no one has ever reached alive. On July 24th, 1938, they stand on the summit. For the first time in history, the north face of the Eiger has been conquered. Newspapers erupt with headlines. Triumph of the human spirit. The wall is conquered. Harrer and his team become heroes, their faces splashed across front pages. But conquered doesn't mean tamed. The tragedy of 1936 remains etched in the collective memory of the climbing world. Tony Kurtz becomes a symbol, not of victory, but of the thin line between survival and death. 1 meter, just 1 meter that separated him from life. Even today, the north face of the Eiger is among the most dangerous climbs on Earth. Since 1935, it has claimed more than 60 lives. Rockfall still thunders down its slopes every day. The weather still shifts in minutes. Avalanches still sweep away the careless. And everyone who climbs it now passes that place. The place where Kurtz once hung, suspended by a rope, spending the night in the freezing dark. The place where he died, just beyond the rescuer's reach. The place where hope ended. Climbers stop there, looking down toward the dark windows of the Eigerwand tunnel. They picture Gladhard, standing on his partner's shoulders, reaching as far as he can. They picture Kurtz, dangling from his handmade rope, whispering his final words, "I can't go on," and they understand a simple, terrifying truth. Sometimes strength isn't enough. Courage isn't enough. Preparation isn't enough. Sometimes fate separates life from death by a single meter, a single jammed knot, a single sheet of ice, a single stone falling at the wrong moment, and there's nothing you can do. Absolutely nothing. That's the lesson the Eiger taught in August of 1936. A lesson written not in ink, but in the lives of 4 young climbers who only wanted to be the first. If this story moved you, share it. Subscribe, and don't miss the next story about the fragile hope that keeps us standing on the edge of the world.